I like save versus traffic, but to be honest, it's probably more applicable to me who's calling into you while I'm driving, like I do right now, and listen while I drive, than you who whisper. So I would vote to stay with Whispering GM. Should I rebrand my podcast in episode 500 as Save versus Traffic? Maybe, but I won't because we fear change.
Welcome back to the Save versus Traffic podcast, the podcast where I yak into a Bluetooth device onto the phone, hoping not to hit other people in the parking lot, and nip in cool names before Jason can use them. Yeah, so should you rebrand? Not sure. It might be hard to do after 500, but that said, I appreciate your call in. Thank you for calling in, my man. With the amount you call in, you might as well be a co-host on this one. So if I do end up stealing it, it's really half your podcast anyway. That said, I do hope that you passed your Save versus Traffic on the way to wherever you are going.
Hi Taylor, Spencer here. I just wanted to say a few things about the idea of a map being an in-game artifact, or in-world artifact, I should say. I mean, I've played in a campaign where the party were actually commissioned to explore and map a dwarven mine, and we were being rewarded based on how much of that area we uncovered. So the map itself was very much an in-world artifact. Whether it was possible for us to have lost that map in-game remained to be seen, but I wouldn't have put it past the DM. Back in the day of high adventure, it seems to me that if you were exploring unknown territory, you'd be crazy not to take a cartographer with you, don't you think?
For the uninitiated reader, the difference between the days of high adventure and the days of regular adventure is that regular adventure uses gold pieces for XP, where high adventure, you get Doritos. I do kind of like it as an in-game artifact. Now, I know that sounds like I'm doubling back on what I said to Jay's original call where I said I could see it as A1, but again, that was the intent for that was it's a mental exercise of if you run this game this way, will it work? And I think it does work if you treat it as a communication tool and a mental map. That said, I do like the idea that it is a that is a physical thing. I love there's an artwork that I've seen. I don't remember if it was in one of the old D&D books or if it was in an OSR thing that I just saw floating around, where it had a handful of adventurers by candlelight etching charcoal on the dungeon floor. And I just love that image. And it makes sudden sense why you have a 2 in 6 chance to be surprised by things coming up on you. You're etching, okay, was it 30 feet or 40 feet? And then a voice speaking Orcish, 40. But, surprise, but at least it was a favorable reaction roll. Anyway, I think I will probably treat it physical, and I will consider telling my players to keep their notes and their maps on different pieces of paper. That said, if your notes are akin to character memories and your character gets nuked, should you shred your notes? It's metagaming to do anything else.
Finally, the Whispering GM podcast arrives. Taylor, my man, welcome with this new branding. I have a few things I want to comment on. First of all, min-maxing definitely happened in BX and beyond. I mean, it's right in the beginning of character. In many ways, I guess I should say, I think there's not a huge difference between the idea of min-maxing and character optimization. I think they're the same thing. So in the early days, in moving stats around or not wanting to play humans and playing the other races because of the racial benefits they come. That was min-maxing, my friend. It was made more apparent, though, in AD&D when people would only want to play half-elf thieves because the thieving abilities were most affected by those character races. So to say that min-maxing didn't happen in the early days and it's only something that happens now, in my opinion, is just not true. I gained my own hatred of it back in the early days of the early 80s. So there is that.
That makes sense. Especially with all the talk you hear about tournament scene, where the one of the goals was to make money on the tournament scene. If you're going to make a player character, then you want them to be competitive to beat the tournament. And if there is any sort of metagame in the sense of making the character more effective by shifting stuff around, then that gives you an advantage in the tournament.
Mapping, such a great idea. And I think I'm going to write an article for it from Gary's appendix. So if I steal all of your work, it's only done with love, my man. Only done with love.
Steal away, my man. That is precisely the license under which this is released. Thank you for calling in. And I look forward to reading.
Hey Taylor, listening to your Answers and Questions podcast, and I have a couple of things to respond to, which I think is great. I love this kind of dialogue. I respectfully disagree with Jay. I go hiking every year out into the wilderness, and we have maps, and we need our maps. Sure, there's a trail at the front end when you enter into a hiking area, but on the back end, the trails are rarely ever marked. They're really discouraging people setting up. There used to be like this tradition of setting up little cairns where to go, but sometimes those are moved. Sometimes the world moves them, right? I mean, rain or animals or whatever, and you need your map. We protect our map. We put it, waterproof bags. We refer to our map often in the case of the orienteering, and sure, we could have a compass and sometimes one of the hikers will have like a GPS, for safety reasons. But yeah, we use that map. We use that map, refer to it often, write notes on the map as we go as to where we're going and what things have changed here, where the trail says. And sometimes you kind of go cowboy and go off the trail because the trail is blocked or doesn't exist anymore. So I would say there are world examples, and maybe it's not everyone, not in your day to day, but there are instances where you do need a map, and if you lose the map, you might be in a world of hurt. So I don't know. It's in genre. Is that the term we use nowadays? It's in genre.
Talking about outdoor indicators, an old infographic comes to mind. There was an American Indian tribe that would bend trees, a certain tree, that would then use the bent tree as it grew as an indicator of a direction. So you would know where you were based on this living landmark. And because the tree, their lifespan is longer than the human lifespan, you now have a permanent sign, a self-healing sign to tell you where to go. I'll see if I can find that infographic, and I'll see if I can link something to it in the show notes. But in the meantime, that's a compelling case for players to keep maps in the wilderness. So your hiking experience appears to be much more extensive than mine. I do have a buddy who did the App Trail a couple years ago, the Appalachian Trail running from Georgia up to Maine, and I'll see if I can get her on the podcast. That would be fun. That would be fun to have her talk about that experience. We can talk about trekking outdoors versus the D&D. Now, her D&D experience is 5th edition, so hopefully you guys can forgive her that. But who knows? She may have forgotten I existed since we moved on to a different job. But That said, that's a good case to keep a map in the dungeon, for one, because even as far back as the original edition, one of the pieces of advice that the Underground Wilderness Guide, Book 3, gives you is make changes to your map. Erase pieces, add more pieces. The dungeon should be under constant construction, because that will pit the player map against the player experience. They'll remember stuff. They'll think about the markings they made. They'll think about the landmarks they look for. They'll uncover new pieces of the dungeon they didn't know were there before. And it keeps them on their toes. It's an added element of the game. Then from an exterior perspective, that's a good case to give the player either a hex sheet or just, who knows, loose leaf, and have them, hey, draw your map. You're in the wild. This is what you see. North, south, west, go. I have not done that personally. I have always relied in either a VTT, which kind of precludes mapping. Well, not really, because, we have VTTs for dungeons, and all you have to do there is have a limited line of sight, and then now your players are mapping because they don't necessarily see outside the torch radius. But on the overland map, you can just set that same deal, give it a 1 hex visibility, and now they're either mapping on their own or they're getting lost. A story comes to mind. I'll share one more story here of a fellow I was talking to on a forum a while back. He was talking about the player maps in conjunction with the getting lost rules. So for folks who are tuning in who haven't necessarily played the deep old school, in the original TSR editions, there were rules about getting lost in the wilderness. If you said, I go north, you might turn around. You might end up going a different direction. Who knows? You miss the cloud cover came over and you didn't quite go as north as you thought you were going. Maybe there was a creek that you couldn't get across, so you tried to follow it to a fordable place and you're off course. And in the original edition, it does say they roll the dice. If they're lost, you inform them that they are lost, and then you move them in a random direction. But what this fellow was saying is, he didn't do it that way. He didn't tell them. So they had their independent hex map that they were kind of marking in pencil. Okay, this is here, this is here, this is here. They went off course. They thought they were going north, they thought they were going east or northeast, but they were actually going due north, and they ended up so off course that they encountered a plant in the natural biome that didn't belong as to where they were going. They recognized flora that were part of the alchemist's cookbook, so to speak, that were indigenous to regions further north than they thought they were. And so the party goes, haha, we need to course correct, and they moved south. That was such a cool story. Now, I have not reproduced it. I have not been able to reproduce it, but man, that would be a cool story. Can you imagine looking at your map going, guys, we have turned around? That's a whole nother level of having an inaccurate map. And anyway, fun story, fun stuff to think about. And you are not alone in your disagreement on the map topic. Did I do a call-in episode between this one and that one? Don't know. But even if not, there are some other calls on this episode where we're talking about mapping. Thank you for calling in.
All right, it's Daniel again. I think I'm probably calling in the middle of Jason's call, but I didn't pick up the 1E DMG just because it's hard to find stuff in there. But in Monsters and Treasure, OD&D, there is a section, and it's for magic items, but it does have item saving throws here. And what it says, and I think I called in already and said this before, let's see, it says, for the sake of simplicity, it's generally easier to assume that the items survive unharmed if their wearer or user is not killed. Although it does say exception helms, which is kind of interesting. Maybe that's because green slime falls on your head or something. It does say if the wearer is killed or the items are alone, throw for them in the following tables. And then it says those items not listed, so that'd be your non-magic items, I assume, are assumed automatically destroyed. So your map is automatically destroyed by a fireball if nobody's holding it, but if the person holding it survives the fireball, then the map is fine. That's how I would rule it, and that's how I do rule it.
That sounds fair. And it also kind of makes sense. Because if you think about it, the save isn't necessarily your body fending off the poison or what have you, in the same sense that hit points are not necessarily meat points and blood loss. On the one hand, the poison that you just got injected with might be directly into your veins, and then you stare at it and the blackness going up your vascular pattern recedes and spits itself out just because it knows better than to mess with you. But at the same time, if I pass my save against the poison needle trap, it might be that the needle went into my glove instead of my finger. It might be that I noticed it at the last second and pulled my finger away. It might be that it went under the skin, came out the other side, and I saw that dripping ooze coming out, and it didn't get into my flesh. Kind of like, middle schoolers might do under the callousy skin under the finger area. I hope my middle school wasn't the only one that did that. If y'all are listening, y'all are gross then, and you are gross now. What was I talking about? But, back on topic, if you think about it, the saving versus dragon's breath, that's not necessarily that everyone does a backflip and the dragon fails to hit you. No, it could be that the fighter knelt behind his shield and watched as the wall of flame parted around it. It could be the halfling dove behind the fighter and is in the lee, created by his little slipstream there. And the thief may have bounced up onto the ceiling. Thieves or the thief acrobat sounds fair, but the simple act of evasion, the simple act of passing your save, gives you all manner of narrative liberty to figure out how you avoided it. And why is this relevant to what you said? Well, if I'm the mapper, I'm going to have rolled up, if I'm under attack, I'm going to have rolled that map up and stuck it in my pocket. I'm going to stick it in my tunic. And so, alternatively, if I'm holding a scroll, I'm going to duck and keep that scroll underneath because it's not going to protect me, and it's expensive. So, it makes sense. That's the way I would rule it. And unfortunately, thinking back, it probably should have been taken from that player from my original example, because he was playing multiple dudes. You know what? Not necessarily. He was playing multiple dudes at a time, but he still had alts. The alt might have been the one carrying the map. So I stuck to the rules without even knowing I did it.
Taylor, the Pink Phantom here. Hey, I appreciate the rebrand. I understand wanting to put things together the way you want them, so that their people see what all your content is going to be and what type of content you're going to have. I don't think there's anything wrong with trapping a scroll case, as long as it's something the players know is possible, and
We definitely know now.
so that it falls on them to say, "Hey, this dangerous world, we have to do this." And the same thing with cursed items. I guess the only question is to make sure that it's communicated with them how they can discover these things. I mean, for example, I've always wondered, if you use the spell identify, does it actually tell you that an item is cursed, or does it indicate that it's some other kind of valuable item and you have to discover the curse in some other way? That sort of thing.
Regarding the identify spell and curses, I do not know the answer, but let's find out. I have in front of me the AD&D First Edition PHB, page 66. Identify, divination. When an identify spell is cast, one item may be touched and handled by the magic user in order that he or she may possibly find what Dweomer it possesses. The item in question must be held or worn as would be normal for any such object, i.e., a bracelet must be placed on the spellcaster's wrist, a helm on his or her head, boots on the feet, a cloak worn, a dagger held, and so on. Note that any consequences of this use fall fully upon the magic user, although any saving throw normally allowed is still the privilege of the magic user. Interrupting here. So it looks like the curse would fall on the magic user, because typically a cursed item will bind to you as soon as you pick it up, or try to use it. Let's see, we'll continue. For each segment the spell is in force, it is 15% plus 5% per level of the magic user probable that one property of the object touched can become known. Possibly that the item has no properties at all and is merely a ruse, the presence of Nistul's magic aura or a magic mouth being detected. Each time a property can be known, the referee will secretly roll to see if the magic user made his or her saving throw versus magic. If the save is successful, the property is known. If it is 1 point short, a false power will be revealed. And if it is lower than 1 under the required score, no information will be gained. Interrupting again, the curse, thus, if I would rule this, if you had a cursed item and you passed this save in secret, you would find out it was cursed. But if you failed by 1, nope. Let's see, where was I? The item will never reveal its exact pluses to hit or its damage bonuses, although the fact that it has few or many such pluses can be discovered. If it has charges, the object will never reveal the actual number, but it will give information which is plus or minus 25% of actual, i.e., a wand with 40 charges could feel as if it had 30 or 50, or any number in between. The item to be identified must be examined by the magic user within 1 hour per level of experience of the examiner after it has been discovered, or all readable impressions will have been blended into those of the characters who have possessed it since. After casting the spell and determining what can be learned from it, the magic user loses 8 points of constitution. He or she must rest for 6 hours. He or she must rest for 6 turns, so 1 hour, per 1 point in order to regain them. If the 8-point loss drops the spellcaster below a constitution of 3, he or she will fall unconscious, and consciousness will not be regained until full constitution is restored 24 hours later. I'm continuing reading even after the answer to the question has been accomplished, partially because it's a good indicator here that it doesn't look like you're supposed to use this. It looks like the spell will give you the information you need, but you still have a good use case to, put on the boots and walk around, to put on the helmet and jump up and down shouting obscure phrases, see if you can identify without the spell. Finally, the material components of the spell are a pearl of at least 100 gold pieces, further discouraging the use of the spell, and an owl feather steeped in wine, with the infusion drunk, and a live miniature carp swallowed whole prior to spell casting. Now, good luck having a live miniature carp in the dungeon, but if a luckstone is powdered and added to the infusion, probability increases 25%, and all saving throws are made at +4. So, I'd have to look up what a luckstone is. If I'd planned ahead, I would have. But as you can see, there's a significant investment in the spell and a little bizarreness at the end to make it seem like it's not, make it seem more difficult to get off. Anyway, so to answer the question directly, there is a good chance that you will find out it is cursed if through experiencing said curse or rolling well, but at the same time, it looks like Gygax did not really like this spell, or at least he made you work really hard to get it. Thank you for calling in, both for that call and for the encouragement. And that wraps up this episode of the Whispering GM podcast, an independently operated product released for educational and informative purposes under the Totally Steal This license. Some sound effects are retrieved from Mixkit.co and used under the Mixkit.co royalty-free music license. Others are retrieved from Pixabay, made available under the Creative Commons 0. Theme music is Raw Power, licensed through PlayOnLoop.com. Parties interested in or with questions regarding the podcast are encouraged to reach out via the methods provided on the Clearing Square Ring Mail blog. Thank you for listening, and delve on.